So, good afternoon, everybody, on this beautiful September afternoon here in beautiful Shaker Square. Welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted to conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Wednesday, September 10th, and I'm Jeremy Johnson, President and CEO of Assembly for the Arts and moderator for today's conversation, which is a special City Club forum and cookout in the community right here in Shaker Square. It is presented in partnership with the St. Luke's Foundation as part of the Health Equity Series. It is also the Lisa Botnick, Karen Faith Witt, and A.H. Weinstein Memorial Forum at the City Club. Yes, let's give it up. We're going to dive right in just about, but I'm going to follow the script, so I want to thank Cynthia. Thank you. Now, many of us agree art is powerful. It can foster social cohesion and influence the mood of a moment. Murals aren't just decorative elements in a neighborhood. They are a tool for revitalization, connection, and storytelling that amplifies voices and strengthens both place and people. So today we have the privilege of unpacking that intersection of murals and community transformation. How can we leverage art to improve our communities on Cleveland's East Side? And what more can be done to support art for the public good? So joining me on the stage here are three very talented artists and community activists who have created stunning murals and other types of public art within the St. Luke's footprint. So you may ask, what is the St. Luke's footprint? Well, it's the neighborhoods of Buckeye-Shaker, Woodhill, and the Mount Pleasant neighborhoods. So first, starting closest to me, we have Stina Aleah, a fine artist and self-taught oil painter whose journey began after a life-changing sports injury. It led her to discover the healing power of art. Since 2015, she has built an inspiring career with national and international recognition, including collaborations with the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland Guardians, Marvel Studios, Disney, and Facebook, to name a few. Next to Stina, we have Kevin, Mr.Soul Harp. Mr. Soul is a visual artist. Yes. You got a fan club out there. Mr. Soul is a visual artist with Inspire Your City. His creative journey spans over 3 decades with a focus on graphic design, illustration, fine art, and public art. He's become a dynamic force in the artistic landscape, and he's left his mark on cities worldwide. And finally, farthest from me is my dear friend, Robin Robinson. She's executive director of Sankofa Fine Art Plus. Oh, yeah. She's a painter, sculptor, photographer, and educator who facilitates art therapy-related programs for youth and senior citizens in the Glenville community and beyond. She's dedicated to bringing fine art outside of the traditional and restrictive to art venues into the urban community. She was also one of the winners participants in the famous Transformative Arts Fund, one of 7 major winners for that. I'm sure we're going to hear about that. So before we begin, a reminder for our live stream audience, if you have a question for our speakers, you can text it to 330-541-5794, and our City Club staff will try to work you in to the second half of the program. So members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Stina, Mr. Soul, and Robin. All right, we're gonna begin. So we're here in this footprint in Shaker Square in large part because of St. Luke's Foundation's investment here and because of their investment in community engagement in some key neighborhoods here on the east side of Cleveland. And so I would ask, why is community engagement so essential to your work? And how do you make sure that the residents of these vital legacy and communities are included in the process. So I'm sure each of you could take that. Who wants to go first?
Can you reiterate the question, please?
Why is community engagement so essential to your work? And how do you make sure residents are part of that work?
Community engagement is essential to me because the community is who gets to experience the artwork. I approach my projects differently than how the systems create community engagement for us. I like to count my community engagement as me being in the field, actually working and sharing or listening to the testimonies of the people who walk past, the people who share comments, the people who tell me that they appreciate the work. To me, this is more of a direct line of community engagement where I'm getting feedback directly from the community as I'm working. I find that to be important because it informs what I do next in the community.
Let's go over to Stina. I first met Stina at a Cleveland Votes mural unveiling on East 116th. Talk about why this is so important to your work.
So that mural was really important to me because it really surrounded the topic of voting and wanting to educate the community on the importance of voting. But there is a misconception on just voting for presidency. So that mural was really focused on educating the community and developing programming around that mural to have more educational moments where people understood what they were voting for, who was up, who was up for certain seats and things like that. So I think sometimes art can serve, well, not sometimes, a lot of times art can serve as a beautiful buffer to speaking of things that might be hard to understand in any other forum, or if you're just getting spoken to or lectured. So that mural in particular, I really loved how it opened up the door to educate the community on who was up, who was up for certain seats and why it was important to get in and vote and certain issues and levies and everything like that. I think there was a misconception about just voting for the presidency. So I loved being able to get into that community and use that mural to educate.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. It was great to be there. And Robin, your art studio, Sankofa, it's right in Glenville, not just around the corner from Glenville High School, but you're now all over the city. I've seen your work every place at festivals and active. Why is this so important to you? Why has this been a part of your life practice?
Well, to answer your original question about community engagement, the way that I engage with the community is different because I actually go into the community that I am planning to do a mural in. I sit down with the community. I listen to the community. I have workshops within that community to find out what the community or the members in that group, the residents, actually want to say about their community. What I look at the murals that I do as community billboards more so than just a community mural. I'm not about trying to necessarily paint a pretty picture, although thankfully they turn out to be attractive. But I do want to translate visually what the community thinks of themselves or their aspirations. So, I make an effort to go into the community to find out what they want to do. And as an artist and an art therapist, I take that art therapist tinge with me to make it more of a healing type of situation, not just a, trying to do something in their community. I want to do something with them for their community.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for that. I want to turn to Mr. Soul. How do you decide what stories to tell in your artwork in your neighborhoods? Talk about that as we look at your work around the city. How did you come up with those themes that you're dealing with?
First part answer is I choose the subject matter because I'm a member of the community. I'm from the community. I listen to the music that the community listens to. I eat where the community eats. I suffer from the same social political issues that my community suffers from. So as an artist, as a vessel, it's very easy for me to interpret this into a visual or artistic format. And so the body of work that I have now that was funded by the St. Luke's Foundation speaks to literacy. I selected this subject matter because as I was researching what I wanted to do with this body of work, opposed to just doing random murals, I came across a statistic that stated that Cleveland has, I don't know if it's current, but when I did the research a few years ago, has a 66% illiteracy rate, and it's 90 to 95% in some communities. So that gave me a platform to use art to speak to a conversation that's much bigger than, the work itself. And so I figured that the majority of the communities, or majority of the people that fall under those statistics are people within my community. And I wanted to speak to them about the importance of art, and the importance of how art can inspire literacy, reading, and making books cool. Making books cool. So part of it is research, and a lot of times, more often, it's just going with the flow of the vibe of what I know the community, what resonates with the community, being a member of the community.
Good. Stina, you get commissions quite a bit. Does that play a role similarly? Do you go into your studio and figure out this is right for where I'm going? Talk about that process.
As far as public murals go, if I'm commissioned for a mural inside of a community, there has to be some legwork, because I don't believe in going into a community and not having a mural or that piece represent where I'm painting. I just don't believe in doing that and just putting something pretty on the wall. I started my art career as art, meaning like healing me and taking care of my, like the depression and the darkness that I was kind of spiraling into. So I always make sure that whatever I'm creating has some type of like inspiration, and that it connects with who it's in front of. So when I'm getting commissioned, I try and have a really loud voice in making sure that we speak to the community members. And I think sometimes the resources that are available for the community to take part in speaking aren't as publicly known. Like when we have like the town halls, or just even we set up a landing page where people can tell their stories. Anything that we could do to kind of command what is going on in that community and what needs to be shared, that's always available. And that's something that I try and put at the forefront. I don't like when we have projects that don't speak. They have to mean something. So for the commissions, I try and make sure that stays at the forefront. And if it does not align with the community, it's okay to walk away. And I think that's the scary part for artists too, when they're starting. There's a lot of murals that I've walked away from because I didn't feel like it would represent the community or share their story in the light that I felt was important for them. And I think it's okay to just say, no, that's not my ministry. That's not why I got into this work. I am here for my community. I want to tell their story, share a bigger story, and it's okay to walk away.
Thank you.
Very good.
As artists, what do you say? We've got a broad listening audience here on site and live stream. What do you say to the people who say our communities don't need art on a wall? The problems are deeper than that. Why are we spending and investing in this? How do you, Robin, looks like you're about ready to, how do you respond to that?
I tell them that they don't know what they're talking about, first of all. As an art therapist, color, to actually see excitement and your message, to see yourself represented, things like that are actually uplifting to a community. And someone that comes through and says, oh, we don't need that. One, they're not dealing with a community. They're looking at it strictly financially and not as far as people are concerned, not as far as the residents are concerned. I think that to enter a community that is depressed, a lot of that depression is because one, it's financial, but two, it's because they don't have a sense of excitement or ownership. And I think that the murals give them both.
Great. Anyone else want to go ahead?
I would say that that would be a strange statement to make, that our communities don't need public art, when there is proven scientific or there's proven statistics that states that public art has an impact on mental and spiritual health. And so one of the things for me for public art is that when I moved back home to Cleveland, I realized that we didn't have a lot of public art on the southeast side of Cleveland. When I would go to Gordon Square, when I would go to the west side, I could count $100,000 to $200,000 worth of work in a 10-block radius, but none of that money was coming to the southeast side of Cleveland. And so because I'm an artist and because I have been engaging with my community as an artist since I was 6, 7 years old, I knew that it was valuable to have work in these communities, specifically the part of town that I grew up running around. And so as I'm painting this work, I'm getting the testimonies from the people who are stopping, who are asking questions, who are blowing their horns, who are congratulating and celebrating. That tells me more than enough that this is what the community wants and this is what the community needs, and they would like to see more of it. So the value that public art brings can't be attributed to a dollar value, because I can assure you most of the artists that install this work are working under the budget, right? So we're doing this from a place of understanding that this is necessary for the places that we inhabit, that we see, that we experience, and that we grew up in. And that would be my response.
Great. Stina?
Well, I think anyone who says that the public does not need art, unfortunately, on their own, did not have a relationship with art, wasn't exposed to art, and have no idea what art can do for them. And so I think they're speaking more from their own experience. Like, art is not aesthetic. For us, at least, I know it's not aesthetic. It's spiritual. We really tap in when we are creating these pieces. And so we know that there's more there than just pretty paint on a wall. We've seen it. We're in the community. We've seen the revitalization. We've seen the children walk by who have never probably experienced seeing a Black artist publicly making a piece of work. And now they can envision themselves doing something a little different than being told to shuffle down this line here. So I think when people say things like that, they themselves don't have a relationship with art, and that's unfortunate. And hopefully they just stop saying things like that.
Good, good. The process by which artists are engaged to do public art, we have what we call calls for artists. In fact, we at Assembly for the Arts, we post those calls on our website, Ohio Arts Council. There are a number of ways to find these calls for artists. Talk about that process, the pros and the cons, and is that how does that process work for you?
All right, I'll take this. I'll start. A call to artists, basically, for beginners, you send out just a resume. So it's not even a proposal for a design or anything like that. It's a just an interest. So you have to send in your resume, and if your resume shows enough experience and enough murals or whatever the project is, then you probably will move on to the next level. And then from there, you'll get a stipend to create something more specific for that design. It is a call to artists that's open to a lot of artists that are in certain areas, or a public call to artists. And so any of us could essentially, apply for those calls to artists.
Do you get to work together, or do you have to, if Robin said, hey, I want to work with Mr. Soul and Stina, and do they allow for that?
Yeah. So if we had that conversation before we actually submitted, then we would submit as a collective. But there's multiple collectives that would do that, or multiple individual artists that would apply for those things. So the calls to artists are great opportunities. I just feel like because they're resume based it does shut out emerging artists or artists who need the experience and exposure. Because if I put my resume out there and I've been doing it for X amount of years, then of course that's going to put me a little bit higher than someone who hasn't had a mural or only had one or two murals in their career. So there are pros and cons to it because you are open to more experiences, new organizations. You get to meet new people. I know one of my first murals out in Bedford, I got to meet and work with Devon and Krista, and I had never met. I didn't know them before, and so that was a start of a great relationship and continue a call to artists. But it can shut out new artists. So
Let's talk about that a little bit more. All of you have done work with government agencies, and you already took a side when I said that. And that's where, the biggest call for artists was probably the Transformative Arts Fund. That was $3 million in post-COVID funding to reinvest in the city of Cleveland in the artist community. And that went to 7 projects. And full disclosure, our organization was the fiscal agent. We weren't involved in the selection directly, but we know that those were significant dollars. How was that process? Robin, you personally went through that. I know we're going to get, stay tuned. There's going to be a culminating event in a few weeks of all of those projects in October. So stay tuned for that. But can you give us a sneak preview about how large that was and what was that like?
Well, from what I understand, there were over 200 applicants or more. I'm not sure. Only 7 were chosen, which I'm grateful to have been the 7th of the 7. But the process itself was arduous. I mean, just as you had to not only create a program or project for the city, you could only do it as an artist. And I'm actually a not-for-profit. I could not use my not-for-profit. I had to just do it as myself as an artist, as a lead artist. I had to then involve an institutional partner, which in my case was Ingenuity Cleveland, which I'm very happy to be partnered with. But the project had to be so detailed, and this is all projected. So, you had to create something that hadn't been done before and involve another entity into that to create in their part of it, how they would handle their part of it. I mean, it was very arduous, and there were so many different things that had to go into it that they were asking you to do. You had to make a budget that was projected. I mean, it was just crazy, but it turned out to be good in my behalf, and the other 6, and for the city. But the process itself was
Public dollars required.
Just horrible.
I don't particularly like the way artists are engaged for projects here. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time going into the details of what I mean there. But as a solution, what I did was I created relationships where I could cut out as many middlemen as possible. In the process of doing public art in Cleveland, there's a lot of middlemen, a lot of people who have their hands in on a project that probably shouldn't. It slows down production for the artists. It slows down our money. And so one of the things that I did is I created a relationship with what was Union Miles when I first started. I created a relationship with Union Miles, and I'm very appreciative of Roshan Sample for having faith in what I said and communicated that I could do. And through that, I was able to build a portfolio of work that I was able to walk into other spaces where I could bypass the artist call process. Some artist calls are cool. A lot more of them are demeaning. They don't match the value of the project that's being requested. And so I feel like as artists, we have the ability to walk our own lane, so to speak. And so that's what I chose to do. I found relationships with people who were looking to service public art in their service area. And that's how I've gone about installing public art by cutting out the middleman and some of the bureaucracy that comes with trying to service the community with public art.
I think that could be sage advice there for our muralists out there.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to agree with Mr. Soul. A lot of these call for artists are, cattle calls, and, you do compete with other artists that you would much rather do work with. So it is very competitive.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, like, I think I said this on the call, like, I just won't do it. Like, I'll just wait to be asked to do something, but I personally cannot do a call to artists because I do not like competing with my fellow artists. I feel like a lot of these organizations who put out these calls to artists, they're looking for artists to build community, right? And build up the community while simultaneously putting us against each other and tearing our community apart. So I always say that I would rather, collaboration over competition. Why not put us in a space where we all can work together, or where we can learn each other's strengths and do something collaborative and build our community together while also building all of our outward communities together, instead of putting us against each other and tearing up our community apart and making it too competitive, when we just want to like create art and use art for advocacy and speak to a bigger message and connect with our people.
That's great. So let's say you've gotten the commission, or you've gotten the relationship, you've gotten the collective, you've selected the site, you figured out the right walls, you figured out the right community, you figured out the right theme, you've put the art up there, it's fabulous, the community comes and celebrates it. And is that the end of the story? What else needs to be part of this? What comes down the road? You know where I'm going. It's 4 years later, it's 5 years later. What needs to be part of that process?
Well, we talked about this on a call, that we agree that if the city wants to get in this game and be involved with putting public art in the city, then the city should have a contingency plan to be able to maintain the work. A lot of times what we find is that we go through the arduous processes of installing the work, and then there's no support to maintain the work after it's installed, because there's money going towards putting up another mural. And we want to see a lot of murals, but we also want to see the ones that have gone up sustain and be legacies like they are in other cities. So there's a need to support the maintenance of this work that shouldn't fall on the artist. I think right now the way it stands is all of us have work that has been put up that needs maintenance, and it kind of falls on us. If that piece is going to be fixed, it's going to be from us and out of our pocket. So I think long term, we would like the city commit itself to maintaining these works so that they have a lot more longevity.
Anyone else want to add?
No, I totally agree with that. I personally have an issue at the moment that I'm working with. There's a mural that has been, we painted it in 2015. So it has extended its regular life that people expect the murals to extend. The mural itself is in really good shape. It's the wall around it. It needs to be cleaned. It needs to be maintained. The property owner at this point has called me and asked me to fix it, or he's going to paint over it. Now, this mural is a landmark mural in Glenville. It was the first mural that we did in Glenville. It's called Our Lives Matter. It's on East 105th and Yale. It's a mural that was put up during the time when Black Lives Matter was very relevant. It still is. But just to say that the property owner expects me to fix the mural and clean the mural, where there should be some kind of legislative funding or some kind of pocket of funds where if the city wants to continue this mural making process, and it is important to communities, that they actually have some type of revenue that we can tap into and then fix the mural. I don't mind fixing the mural, but I'm not paying to fix the mural. And I think that the mural is a landmark for Glenville and should be maintained.
There also has to be, I think there needs to be better communication between the city or those facilitating public art and the building owners. Because a lot of times, like in your situation, we talk, the building owner has no idea what the process is. Right. But for a building owner who's watching the wall deteriorate, those are his only two options, to paint over it or to have the artist fix it, because the city is not involved, or whoever commissions the work has stepped out of the equation at that point.
I think those are all very good points. And to those future commissioners out there for artwork, think about all of these elements. And thankfully, here in Cleveland, we do now have a senior advisor for arts and culture that we didn't have 4 years ago, who can help with these processes and policies, so we can make sure that our public art lives on and there are policies to protect it. As I was out in the crowd before we came up here, I met a young artist. His name was Noah. Noah's Ark. How old are you, Noah? 13 years old. So he's selling some art there. We love our entrepreneurs.
Buy some of Noah's Ark.
So for the young people that are looking up to the artists on this stage and other muralists in particular, what would your advice be for those coming behind you who want to enter this world where you have of public art? What would be your advice to the young Noahs and others like him?
Well, I think we all agree that a mentorship is important in this industry. I can only speak for myself, but I did this alone and I made a lot of mistakes, and I could have been saved from a lot of problems, navigating this career with mentorship. So I think that's really important. Unfortunately, artists do get taken advantage of. And so having someone who have navigated the systems, went through city, the public art committees and doing all these things, I think it's important to partner yourself with someone like that and learn from all the mistakes that we've made. And I joked with you, but I was dead serious that on our call last week, I had learned something from him. Just even though I've been doing this and count myself as a professional, I'm like, well, he's been doing it longer and I can still learn. And it's an active learning, and you're constantly learning and trying new things. And especially young artists who just want to really level up and be elite. I would say I like the word elite because I used to be an athlete, so I'm going to use that. Challenge yourselves. There's something in a mural every single time that I do one that I have no idea how to do, and if I can do it or if I can achieve it. But I put it in the mural so that I can challenge myself. One, so I can challenge myself. Two, that I can continuously better myself and learn. And I also would say, get with a group of artists. Like, I have a group chat of artists where, like, sometimes I'm like, girl, I cannot get through this part of this mural, or what should I do with this? And having that feedback and having that type of support it gets you through when things get a little rocky. So that's my advice.
So I would triple co-sign having a mentor. I was fortunate enough to have a mentor probably around ninth grade. If anybody is in the hip hop culture and anybody is familiar with graffiti culture in Cleveland, my mentor is a man named Sano, who is the graffiti king of Cleveland, Ohio. And the other part of that is that for young artists listening, you have to listen to your mentor, okay? Because the mentor knows not everything, but knows enough to get you 3 years beyond the point that you're at. For example, like, we listened to our mentor. Our mentor had us at art stores, expropriating paint, art supplies, and everything we needed to create artwork, because that was part of the rites of passage. We was willing to go to jail for our mentor to steal art supplies. But the byproduct is we didn't go to jail for stealing art supplies, and that I learned a lot from my mentor. And every time I get a chance to speak about him, I elevate his name, because without his tutelage and without the path he laid for me and many other artists that came under him, I wouldn't be here on this stage. So get a mentor, young artist, and listen to your mentor, young artist.
I have to triple, dipple, zipple everything that has been said so far. Part of my Transformative Art Fund project was to have 6 mentor artists and 6 artists who want to do murals. They were already artists in their own right, but they had never done murals or hadn't done many murals. So with 12 artists, we did 6 murals. So the idea of learning how to do murals, and not just, you get a call to artists and you can jump on a wall, but as a group, as a cohort, as an educational foundation, I think it's important that we support the younger artists, that as an older, more established muralist, that we train the younger ones that want to learn what we know, whether they become muralists or they just take the art in another direction. It's important to have someone to guide you, to answer the questions that you may have, and even as somebody who's done murals for the last 15 years, there are a lot of different elements that I may not know that somebody who's just coming out of school may know. If we teach each other and trade off the knowledge from each other, then that's how we grow as artists.
Hear, hear.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're about to begin the audience Q&A. So I know some of you are chomping at the bit. For our live stream audience, I'm Jeremy Johnson, President and CEO of Assembly for the Arts and moderator for tonight's conversation. Joining me on the stage are 3 incredible artists and muralists: Stina Aleah, fine artist and muralist; Kevin, Mr.Soul Harp, a visual artist with Inspire Your City; and Robin Robinson, Executive Director at Sankofa Fine Arts Plus. We welcome questions from everyone, including those joining from our live stream at cityclub.org and here with us in Shaker Square. If you'd like to ask a question, please make it a question. And you may line up at the microphone that we have here right in front. You can also text a question to 330-541-5794, and our City Club staff will try to work it into the program. A reminder, please keep your questions short and to the point. And may we have the first question, please?
Yes, good afternoon. This is to all of the artists. Because of your difficulty with the city, would it be more advantageous for you if you could find individuals in the community who have property and would like to have a mural placed on their respective walls? And then maybe you wouldn't have to go through that difficulty with first, second, and third people dipping their hands in your money.
Can I have your name, please?
Dion Thomas Carmichael.
Thank you, Miss Dion. I asked to take this because I get that question all the time. When you're painting a mural on a wall, people come by and say, hey, I want one on my house. The problem is that it's very expensive for the artists to do murals on walls. And most of the time, there's a lot of processes that go through it beyond just painting a picture on your wall. So most people, individuals, property owners cannot afford to have a mural put on their wall. And when they ask you, well, how much would it cost? And you give them a price, they're astonished. And sometimes, annoyed.
They disappear.
They disappear. But the truth of the matter is that when I do murals, 90% of the time, they're grant-based murals. So I will write a grant to do a mural in a certain area. And then once I get that grant, I go out to do the mural in that area. I never charge a property owner for a mural on their wall.
That's pretty much my process as well. I ride through the neighborhood to the community all the time, and every wall is a canvas to me. So there's no shortage of walls. There's just shortage of funding. But when we get an opportunity to get funding, like she said, we have already picked out what can go where. We've created the relationship with the business owner. And once the funding is secured, we can facilitate that process. And the building owner doesn't have to do anything.
Now, in the perfect world, if that were the case and we could partner with these building owners, and it's public, we still have to go through the design review. That's just something that has to happen for public murals. So no matter what, there's a process behind the scenes that I think a lot of non-artists don't know about, but we do have to go through a design review committee, and we do have to be granted a certificate of appropriateness to be in that community. And then from there, if we're in a historic district, there's another commission that you need to go in front of to get that approval. And then if you're obstructing a sidewalk, you also need that permit too. So there's still a lot of things that artists do behind the scenes that our community do not get to see. But in the perfect world, yes, I fortunately have a mural like that with a business like the building owner. And I was surprised at how quickly everything happened. Like it just flowed. However, we were delayed with the commission meetings and things like that. So in the perfect world, yes, that would make everything a lot easier.
Our next question is a test question. It says, we've been seeing a lot of public art geared towards support of Black Lives Matter or the LGBT community get painted over or covered up. Thank you. Even due to the direct legislation, how has this impacted the muralist community here in Cleveland, or are you individually as artists?
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
Would you repeat
They
that?
were painted.
So, we've been seeing a lot of public. Yeah, you got to take that. Thank you. It didn't work out so well. We've been seeing a lot of public art geared towards support of Black Lives Matter or the LGBT community get painted over or covered up, some even due to direct legislation. How has this impacted the muralist community here in Cleveland, or you as individual artists?
I don't have an answer.
Well, yeah, I haven't had that experience as far as any murals that related to Black Lives Matter. I think the Voices of Clee project was surrounded in Public Square in 2020. Do you remember that? It was more of traveling murals, so they're protected, and I think that's important too. Like when an organization knows the messaging, that it could be sensitive, it could be vandalized, or it can be taken down, to protect the artists and making it in a way where those murals are somewhere safe right now. And when there's an event or something important going on, they come out, but then they go back. And I think that is what has protected some of my murals that speak to those topics. I think the Black Lives Matter mural on East 93rd was covered, right? Ricky, you did that. That's how we met. We did that. I think that one was covered, correct? That was sad because I think that was the first time that I've seen a lot of artists really come together. And that was such a monumental moment and pivotal moment for me, stepping out and showing up for my community. So I think that was a really sad day when that got painted over. But that's my only experience with that.
Good evening. My name is Jacqueline. Thank you for coming out tonight. My question is, does storytelling play a role in your artwork? And if so, how?
I gotta go, huh? Everybody looking at me. I would say yes. I don't necessarily always go into my work to specifically tell a story. I feel like the work that I create already speaks to a variety of stories, as I said earlier, being a very active member of the community and engaging in conversations with the community. A lot of my subject matter, a lot of my themes just come from everyday living, really. So I don't really dig too deep in terms of what story I'm going to tell, more so than what message am I looking to deliver through this piece.
Yeah, I agree. As far as my work is concerned in the community, I do kind of tell a story. I actually try to translate the voice of the community. So it's not like I am telling a story, I am just translating their story.
For me, I'm an oil painter and a muralist. So when I started my art career, I had a devastating injury, like Jeremy said, and it took me out of track and field, and I was devastated. I fell into a very deep depression, and I was made to sit in the art room to take my classes. And while I was healing, during those downtimes, the art teacher would convince me to do these projects. And I remember just what art made me feel in those moments, healing myself mentally while I was healing physically. And I have always taken that through my art. So it's more of a feeling, I would say, versus storytelling. For example, the painting behind me is really an ode to my inner child. It was something that, like, I was going through this journey of healing my inner child. And for me, art is really personal, but it still speaks to our community. This painting is called "We Have Food at Home." How many of us heard that? Right? So when someone walked up and saw it, they're like, "Wow, I see so much joy in this." And that was healing me, but it also touched my community as well. So it depends. Like the public murals, yes, there's a little bit of storytelling because you're telling the story of the community. You want to tell their story in the best light, and in the best way. However, I think some of my personal work is more the feeling and wanting to help people heal whatever those like hidden mental, things are, whether that's depression or anxiety or just anything. So I think for me, it's a little mixture of both.
Hi. Maybe you could help us understand how the mural goes on the wall. I mean, there's all kind of walls, right? Do you paint directly on the wall? Does it have to be prepared, or is it painted on something else and then mounted on the wall?
Thank you for the question. There are just as many ways to put a mural on the wall as there are walls. Every wall is different. Every wall needs something different. Sometimes they need to be worked on before you can even prime them. So, the stucco wall is going to be different than a brick wall. Sometimes they are mounted on the wall. It totally depends on what is necessary to get that mural on the wall.
Yeah. And what certain cities allow, like for example, the city of Lakewood, it's only vinyl murals. So you would have to do that more digitally and then format it correctly, and then they'd do a vinyl and put it on the wall.
That's correct. Every city has its own requirements. Dealing with the city again, Lakewood, you can't paint on a wall, as Stina said. Different areas are different, so you have to go through that city code to find out what actually is allowed for that city.
For my work, I'm 100% aerosol, or maybe about 98, 99%. And I prefer to paint on the wall. I don't like vinyl. I don't like panels. I would opt for vinyl over panels, but I prefer to paint directly on the wall.
Hi, my name is Journey to Zion. I know a couple of y'all up here. Robin, I love you. Yeah. Anyways, so my question is, how do y'all as artists or like working with these organizations push back against gentrification with public art?
It's really you have to have the voice. You have to not be afraid to speak up for the community. That's number one. I think you cannot be afraid to speak up to the community. But like I said earlier, you also can't be afraid that if it doesn't align with the community, to walk away. I think it gives organizations the wrong idea when artists, like, unfortunately, they think artists are desperate, right? So they think that, well, we're going to put all these parameters on you and you have to do it. But not walking away and taking it anyway gives them the wrong impression. The pushback has to come with advocating for the community that you're going into, period. Like, and that's our voice, right? For me, I don't want to put my name on something that, like, it, when the mural speaks to the community protects that mural, and they value that mural, and it's a part of them. from that point forward. But if they don't, what are we doing? Like, right? Like, what are we doing?
Well, I think that a lot of times we see murals that, in other areas, not so much on this side of town, but we see murals that do not reflect our communities because they come from people outside of our communities, maybe outside of the city, outside of the state, that are brought in by different foundations and organizations to paint something on a wall. So those are the murals that are more likely to be vandalized because the community doesn't find any ownership in those murals. But if you actually engage the community in the murals that you put up in their community, like Stina said, they do take care of those murals. I've been doing murals for over 20 years in Cleveland, in different areas all over Cleveland, and none of my murals have ever been vandalized. The community will mow the lawn in front of the murals because they have ownership in that mural.
For me, I don't really deal with the gentrification part of it because of my personal intentionality in installing public art on the southeast side of Cleveland. So I'm not working with an organization who feels that they need to beautify the community for a plan that comes down the road. When I moved back home to Cleveland in 2016, there was no public art with exception to a couple of photo murals that photographer Donald Black Jr. had installed on this part of town. And I say that because I knew that there was intentionality behind putting that work there that was void of an organization or a community planning agenda. So for me, I just recognized that there was a void for where I was from, and I wanted to see art. And I knew that the art that I would install would speak to the community. And so it's not connected to any community development. It's not connected to an ulterior long-term motive to reshape or change the dynamics of the community. However, artists and muralists are used as ploys to do exactly what I'm talking about. Artists are used to beautify a community that in 5 to 10 years will remove the people that the work speaks to. So that's a problem, not just in the city of Cleveland, but across the country. Public art is used as a softener to allow developers and the hipsters and the gentrifiers come in and change the landscape of our community. So as an artist, I'm aware of this. And as Stina says, if I feel like that's the reason why I'm being hired for this project, then I'll pass it up.
Hi, my name is Tao Win. Just want to say, love what you guys have been talking about. I have 2 questions. My first question is, what would you say to the younger generation in terms of art making with AI being in the picture?
I'll answer that question. There's a big conversation around AI and art and artificial intelligence in general. On the surface level, I would say it's like email. We didn't want to send email back in the 90s, but everybody sends email because you have to. At some point, you are going to have to subscribe to some form of AI. How you do that is on you. For my latest mural that I did on 93rd and Buckeye, I use AI to generate the image, because for me, I would have had the first 3 murals that I did out of the series. I hired a photographer. I did a photo shoot. So I had to coordinate a schedule between the subject, the photographer, had to pay people, and it was just extra time and money on the project. I knew what I wanted to say to the community, and I was able to use AI to prompt that image to give me a reference point, and then I painted it. The skill still came in me taking that picture that was 8.5 by 11 and painting a 30-foot by 20-foot mural with it. So that's my answer to utilizing AI.
I think you're going to have the last answer too, Mr. Soul, because we're at time. I invite everybody to come up and greet the artist at the end, so we can get the words from you, Robin. So thank you to Stina, Mr. Soul, and Robin for joining us at the City Club today Tonight's forum is part of the City Club's Health Equity Series sponsored by St. Luke's Foundation. It is also part of the City Club in the Community Series in partnership with Bank of America. Tonight's forum is also the Lisa Botnick, Karen Faith Witt, and A.H. Weinstein Memorial Forum at the City Club. This special forum alternates annually between an exploration of creativity in memory of Lisa Botnick and a focus on continuing the challenges of human persecution in memory of Karen Faith Witt and A.H. Weinstein. It is the City Club's honor to dedicate this year's forum to Lisa Botnick. Our gratitude to her mother, Ellen Botnick. We waved at her earlier today. She's with us today for her continued support. Thank you for your support that reflect your daughter's joy around creativity and the arts. And thank you once again to our speakers, and thank you to the members and friends of City Club. I'm Jeremy Johnson, and this forum is now adjourned.